Brooke. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthew Tiani. I'm the Executive Vice President of iTech AG. We are a technology consulting firm that strives to transform federal and commercial organizations into leaner, more efficient versions of themselves. Using a wide range of digital disciplines, we modernize and optimize clients' operations to help them achieve better, faster, and more predictable results. Before we begin, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to participate in this webinar and interact with members of industry. Today we'll share our experience leveraging the Nuvolo Facilities Enterprise Asset Management application and the ServiceNow platform to support USAID, Food for Peace, and the Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance as a tool to improve their logistics and supply chain. With me today is Greg Olson, the Program Operations Director for Food for Peace, and Robert, the iTech AG Engagement Manager, and Ben Person, the Vice President of Product Marketing for Nuvolo, as Brooke so kindly introduced. Together we'll tell our story of how leveraging modern tools can greatly provide value to any organization. Next slide, please. To accomplish this, we'll first provide context for how this program came to be, the users who we support, global community that we service, and then give you a brief demonstration of the application that we built. We'll be sure to save some time to answer any questions that you might have. Without further ado, let's begin. Next slide, please. As a consulting firm, we want to embed ourselves with our customers to truly understand their business needs. When we first started working with USAID, they were using spreadsheets entirely to manage all of their logistics and supply chain. This is not uncommon for many organizations. All clients are unique. Many times their issues are not. Data integrity is a risk to any organization. Logistics and supply chain management is often a multi-vendor environment. Responsibilities are shared, and any data inconsistencies will impede the end goal of efficient and streamlined delivery of commodities to their consumers. By analyzing USAID's current business processes and identifying process improvements based upon industry best practices, we are able to create savings in time, resources, and money, as well as greatly improve reporting accuracy and forecasting needs. Of particular importance when we were selecting the modern cloud-based platform tool was we also wanted the offline capability that Novolo offered. Many of these warehouses and distribution centers are in non-industrialized locations, or in the event of a disaster, if there's not even power. We could have people using tablets in the field that would then sync to the secure ServiceNow Impact Level 4 cloud to provide real-time inventory updates when internet service was returned. In essence, by utilizing Nuvolo and ServiceNow to build the Humanitarian Inventory Management System, we're able to orchestrate movement of food from the farms in the Midwestern United States to the trucks moving commodities to ports and the ships bringing them to the pre-positioning warehouses, and then all the way to the distribution partners providing relief to those in need. While I could go on, I would rather turn the microphone over to Greg Olson, who can speak with much more greater passion about the USAID Food for Peace and Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance missions. Greg, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Before we move on to the next slide and I talk a little bit of the background about Food for Peace and the Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance, I want to take a moment to talk about that third part of the current slide, who is responsible for deliveries. Now, the way this works is we are the program office. We run those programs in conjunction with our implementing partners. We have commodity suppliers in the United States. We have ocean carriers. We have freight forwarders. We have all these people involved in supply chain, making it really important that we be able to share accurate information and really be able to support those who are actually doing those deliveries on our behalf. You know, organizations like the World Food Program or Catholic Relief Services. So just keep that in mind, that one of the major problems we had was being able to share accurate, timely information in humanitarian disasters. You know, people don't have time to wait for those types of things. We really focused on building a system that would not just serve us, but serve all of those that are responsible for those deliveries. So we'll go on to the next slide. So Food for Peace is part of the United States Agency for International Development. It was technically started in 1954, but the idea for that program actually dates back to the Marshall Plan in rebuilding Europe. And a big part of what the U.S. did was provide food to European nations to go through that process. So our genesis is with the Marshall Plan, and we've kind of worked pretty much the same way since then. a few tweaks here and there, but that gives you, again, an idea of why we were stuck on spreadsheets and not really following the market, that our business processes just weren't being updated as frequently as I would like to, at least. What do? We provide food assistance to the world's most vulnerable people. So think of, South Sudan and Yemen and Syria, Somalia, Mozambique, Burkina Faso, a lot of the places that you guys hear about in the news and are just like really tough spots to be in. These people really have nothing else at times, and we're there to, save lives, provide some hope, build them up a little bit so they can take care of themselves is the idea of what we do. Now, for the rest of the presentation, we're not going to talk too much about the Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance, so we're just going to go over some bullets here. We just didn't have time to cover both aspects of this in the system in the presentation. So they're responsible for leading and coordinating the U.S. government's response to disasters overseas. They are boots on the ground in anything international disaster for the U.S. government. They lead that whole effort, helping countries to prepare, respond, and recover from humanitarian crises. Now, combined between those two offices, which are about to become a new bureau, for those that know government speak what that means, hopefully that was going to happen soon, around $20 billion of commodity and transport since the year 2000, just to give you an idea of the scope of what we're doing. And we do maintain global stockpiles of food and non-food items in 7 or 8 different warehouses around the world, in order for us to speed up that response, to not be going through the procurement and delivery process when something is needed. We're actually having those things already in warehouses and can roll them out a little bit faster. Okay, next slide, please. So a little bit more of the background on us. Storage locations, we do have 8 warehouses around the world, 2 of those domestically in Houston and Miami, and 6 others, or at least contracts for 6 others. We currently aren't stocking anything in Malaysia. We just haven't had enough response out there, but we do treat this as a network, as a platform, where the warehouses don't stand alone, where if one warehouse doesn't have what's needed, we can draw on another to get it there in time, just reinforcing the need for a system that can connect all of this in a very quick and accurate way. The warehouse contracts for the food side can hold up to 30,000 tons at a given time. It's really hard to help you visualize what that looks like, but that is a lot of food. That's like a ship full of food at one time. So the value of what's inside those warehouses can fluctuate between a few $1 million and probably 20, but that 13 is kind of the average that it sits around. There are relatively large groups of people doing this, but there's a very small core group that are really involved in managing this thing. So there are some analysts that are doing some of the analytics pieces of this through Excel, but there is a sizable team, hence the need for a system to pull us all together and give us a platform to work off of. So the next part of this is on auditing and oversight. 40 large shipments a year, but ongoing medium-sized, small-sized shipments throughout the year all the time. We probably have 2 or 3 ships on the water at any given time of the year carrying food to either one of our own warehouses or directly to one of our implementing partners in country. We do restock those warehouses on a monthly basis. But if need be, as we've done 3 times in the last probably few weeks, is go off cycle, that we follow the needs. If there's a greater need that's been identified, we try to get ahead of that as much as possible, and we'll put in an out of cycle request. And another big part of the system that you're going to hear more about is being able to do accurate inventory reporting for financial reconciliations. So we get our money through the Department of Agriculture. So anything that we've bought, they've bought on our behalf that hasn't yet been programmed still shows up on their financial records. So they're responsible for doing that kind of reconciliation, and us providing them with good data in order to do that is one of the key outputs of this system to enable us to work better with our colleagues at the Department of Agriculture. Okay, next slide, please. So what we're trying to do is look a little bit more commercial. I mentioned before that our business processes haven't changed too much, and that's one of the big shortcomings that we've had, is just not being able to take advantage of the changes, the modifications, the innovations that have been made by companies like Walmart and Amazon, that they've really figured out the supply chain side of stuff. So we're trying to take some baby steps in those directions. distribution, scheduling, and tracking, the core of what we need to do. Where is my food? Where is it at right now? I need to know, in case something goes bad in country X, I can move to country Y. In order to do that, you have to know where all that food and all those non-food items are. Accurate asset inventory, that's part of what we talked about before with USDA and be able to provide that. But just as importantly, for us to do the proper level of oversight. I'm a civil servant. We're using your taxpayer dollars to, provide food assistance around the world. We take that role very seriously, that we're very thankful for the funding that we do get. We do everything we can to manage it as best we can. And that's a big part of what the system will allow us to do, is centrally tracking everything, the shipments. We don't do a whole lot of returns. It's a little hard to do that at the scale we work at, but that's definitely part of what we do. If there is a food quality, food safety incident, it may not be a full recall, but we need to know quickly where that food came from, what ship it was on, who was the supplier, where is it now, what were the touch points, in order for us to go through that process of identifying things, notifying our partners that there may be some issues and they need to kind of hold on to that food until we can figure things out. And one of the pieces that I'm most interested in is on this, the metrics side of things. We have a lot of partners that are involved in this, and some are tracking it at unit level, and some are tracking it at metric tons, and some are kilograms, like all those things. That's just a lot of manual work for people to have to do. Acceptance of sign-off, that chain of custody has to be maintained, and that's a big part of what we see this system enabling us to do a better job of. And then the timestamps of knowing what happened. The supply chain that we work in is rather long, can take anywhere from probably a few weeks to a few months and sometimes longer to get things delivered. But it's still very important that we know when things are happening, when it's passed through a warehouse or off of the ship, things like that are very easily done, through a system, but very hard to do manually, because it can take weeks to get that Excel sheet updated and emailed, and hard copies of things moved along. So really what we're trying to do is just kind of scratch the surface on some of those more modern supply chain features that a lot of organizations have been using that we just hadn't taken advantage of. Okay, next slide. So this is kind of where we were. At the very beginning, I think Matt talked about, spreadsheets, doing all this stuff. Back when I started, there were only 2 of us, and there were only 3 warehouses, so it was a lot easier. Now it's 8, and there's a bigger team, and there's more complexity, and the environment we work in is more difficult, all those types of things. So, having to spend a lot of time working through manual spreadsheets was not ideal, outside from the human error. Sorry folks, that's just the way it works. No one meant to add another 0 onto that inventory number. We really don't have 10,000 tons, we only have 1,000. It has some real impacts on that side of things. So having that done through the warehouses and the contractors that manage those and giving us that information in real time enables us to do a lot more with it and to make better decisions. It allows us to replenish orders faster if we have some metrics on what has the baseline been, what are the trends, things like that we can rely on the system to give us some of that kind of predictive analytics to speed along that replenishment process. Sometimes a week or 2 weeks can save people's lives in our world, and if we spend a week trying to figure out what our request is, we're really not doing our jobs as best we could. And that does get into the kind of planning and cost estimate piece of this. We try to be very careful with how we manage the funds, and have to rely on estimates a lot of the time to do that, and we're always revisiting those to make sure they're as accurate as possible. You put too much into a ocean freight estimate on a per ton basis, you're kind of shorting your programs. You don't put enough into that ocean freight estimates, you have a big funding deficit at the end of this. So trying to balance all those things out is really important for us. But this is really just kind of the impetus for what got us going down this path, is trying to do some of these things a little bit better. Next slide. So this gets us to our 2018 goals, gives you a little history on how long we've been working with Nuvolo and iTech AG on some of these things. But none of this has really changed too much. Having that single lens, that single version of truth, as I've come to understand the parlance on a lot of this, really is important, especially to me as one of the managers in this, to go somewhere to be able to see everything at once. What's the entire inventory in every warehouse? What's its value? What's its status? there are best if used by dates or expiry dates, things like that we have to be very mindful of, and having visibility into all that really helps. We talked a bit about automating some of what we do rather than people doing manual calculations or having built-in formulas into Excel. Having the system do that for us is a really big deal, especially for the folks out in the field to be able to get information fast and not have to rely on an email chain to get an answer that, it could take 3 weeks to figure out the source of something, where in the system it's pretty much, at your fingers whenever you need it. And full visibility. This is really the key to a lot of this into the inventory management side of things, that if you can't see what's going on, you really have nothing. You have no ability to make decisions. You're just kind of constantly guessing, which is how it felt for a long time. So this is a big piece of what I'm hoping to get some personal benefit from, is to be able to go into the system and just see what's going on through dashboards or reports that are generated out of the system whenever we need them. And again, kind of coming back to the data analytics side of things, that's kind of the next step that we're looking at in using the data that we do have. Can we figure out where some of the trends are, some of the needs are? I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but this is one of the pieces that I'm really psyched about, is being able to do some higher level analytics inside of a system, having those algorithms built into things to help us do some predictive analytics, and just to be able to do better reporting on a wider variety of things to help us inform our decision making is really, really important to us. So with that, I'll kind of take a pause and talk the big picture about why is all this so important? Why do you guys spend so much time and effort to put the system into place? So we developed a bit of a use case scenario for the world that we work in. So it's really the reason why we're all on a webinar instead of in person. I was looking forward to possibly joining you all down in Florida for a bit of time to get out of DC. Can't do that because of COVID, and that's the use case that we're going to use today. So kind of the top line of the use cases, even before COVID, 2020 was not going to be a good year for food security. Global hunger was at one of its highest points even before COVID hit, and with the pandemic, it's just going to get worse. So I pulled some information from the World Food Program about what they're seeing. And according to them, roughly 135 million people experienced acute hunger across 55 countries. That's pre-COVID. The global recession caused by COVID could nearly double to 265 million, the number of people facing severe food shortages before the year is over, and a famine could occur in some 36 countries. Now, to us, famine is a very technical word. It's not just this general, people dying from not eating. There's a lot more to it than that. For a bit of background on things, a few years ago, we were focused on 4 famines in East Africa, and even that we thought was like, that's just crazy. That is insurmountable. There's no way we can deal with 4 famines at the same time. And now, this says 36, just to give you an idea of what this could do. It basically boils down to the potential for 130 million people to be driven into severe hunger by this epidemic. WFP is planning to provide $965 million in global logistics and supply chain services through 2020. That's just to move the food. That's not even the food itself. And they're mobilizing a very significant amount of resources. I think it's in the neighborhood of $100 million or 100 million people to provide food to. Now, they're our partner, so I take what they say with a grain of salt, and I turn to our internal folks at the Salmon Early Warning System, our group of experts inside of the agency to give us some background on this. They were saying at the beginning of 2020, conflict, poor macroeconomic conditions, and weather shocks were already driving food insecurity across the globe. The onset and progression of COVID and measures taken to suppress it are likely to further increase the magnitude and severity of food insecurity. FuseNet estimates that 94 million people will be in need of humanitarian assistance in 2020 across 29 different countries. That's a 55% increase above the 5-year average and a 25% increase in just 1 year. So there are some discrepancies between those two, but that's pretty normal for what 2 data sources say on this kind of thing. But the one quote that really struck me was from Kenneth Rogoff. He is a former chief economist at the International Monetary Fund. He was on a Council on Foreign Relations conference call earlier this month. I was not listening in. I read this after the fact, but there was one quote that just absolutely just floored me. I think we could be looking at a humanitarian crisis at a scale the likes of which we haven't seen in 100 years. I've never heard that in my 15 years of doing this type of work. I've never seen that kind of statement from one of these big organizations. So I just wanted to take some time to talk about this is what we do. These are the environments we're working in. And COVID is just going to make it so much worse. If we were still relying on spreadsheets to do this, I would feel a lot less confident in our ability to get the job done. You know, with this system recently coming online and our ability to use it to better manage the supply chain and the inventory in and out of these warehouses is a crucial piece of what we do. So with that, I will hand it over to Devin to give you guys a demo of the actual system.
Deb, you might be on mute.
Yep. Oh, I apologize. No, thank you, Greg. Yeah, the positive outcomes for USAID. I'm going to touch on a few of the points, some of the positive outcomes and some of the things that we worked on with Food for Peace and OFTA to implement in HIMS that would increase efficiencies, save time, and just overall improve the accuracy of their tracking from throughout a commodity item life cycle. So working closely with the Food for Peace and the OFTA teams, we identified some pain points in their existing business processes. And then we kind of asked ourselves, how can we improve the efficiency, the accuracy, the accessibility, as well as provide additional functionality with this HIMS platform. So one of the main pain points that we saw that HIMS addresses was the accuracy of the inventory tracking and management within the warehouse. So migrating away from Excel spreadsheets was, I think, one of the biggest things that we saw. A lot of data inaccuracies and issues that were not providing reliable data across a commodity orders life cycle. These were also siloed, so different processes, different functions within Excel spreadsheets in different areas. So HIMS allows us to get nice visibility across all the entire system. And then as well, leveraging HIMS, we improved the tracking processes and the accuracy, leveraging ServiceNow, Nuvolo, some of those powers there to automate a lot of these tracking processes, calculations, and everything. So yeah, well, with that automation, we also see just, like I said, improved accuracy, time saving, efficiency, and then just preservation of that data integrity throughout a commodity's life cycle, I think is one of the most important things. Speaking of the tracking accuracy of the inventory, you'll see here one of the bullet points in the center column. We're able to leverage some of the more powerful aspects of Nuvolo and some of the capabilities. And one of those main things that we're going to be implementing within HIMS is actually a QR code scanning. Nuvolo allows us to add barcode, RFID, and QR code scanning for inventory from procurement all the way into the warehouse receiving, as well as all the way through to releasing to the partners. I think the final point here before I jump in the demo is we're able to bring much needed functionality that is typically spread across multiple platforms into one system. And three items that I've identified, planning and reserving of commodities. We have this functionality to allow, and I'll actually touch on this during the demo. Second item is the commodity builder. That allows ad hoc commodity item requests to be created in the system, very flexible. And then finally, I think one of the biggest things, and this is specifically for OFTA right now, is virtual warehouse creation. We're able to create stand-up warehouses for emergency situations that act as permanent warehouse locations, being able to receive and also release commodity orders as needed, as well as allowing them to decommission them. And then just, I think the integrations with external systems, as Greg talked about, forecasting, data analytics, as well as integrating with WebSCM for the tracking. All right. So I will switch over to the demo now. All right, so this is the HIMS main page. I'm just going to take you through a very simple workflow on the food for peace side of things. You'll be taken to the main warehouse page here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the beginning of the workflow. Essentially, we need to create a record, designate the warehouse, a call forward year, and that allows us to start the cost estimation and also the original the procurement, the purchase order. So what I'm going to do is I created a purchase request before, so I'll just follow this workflow here. All right, and what you'll see is all relevant information just to kickstart this workflow is provided here. Approve request. This allows functionality to create estimates, shipping and cost commodity estimates for commodities before the actual purchase. And what that's determined by is you determine the commodity, how many you'll be needing, the warehouse location, as well as the fiscal quarter. Every quarter we get updated estimates for the commodities and the shipping per trade route and per commodity, and those are updated in the system. And then what you'll see is when you select those, it'll automatically populate an estimate for that commodity based on the fiscal quarter, and as well as the shipping based on the trade route. And then all of the data is aggregated, as well as trade route is defined by this information. All right. So next up, I'm going to go through a purchase order. We want to procure these black bean bags, 50 kilograms. So what I'm going to do is I created a purchase order here. And what you'll see is, as I go down here, similar information, commodity cost, shipping costs, as well as automated calculations. Again, getting away from those spreadsheets, all automated processing, and you submit the form, as well as calculations based on when did this arrive, when did this product arrive, and also how long until the expiration. And as you can see here, that's under best if used by date. If the commodity is within a certain date of expiration, it'll actually populate in red. Otherwise, it'll be green. And notifications are triggered. You can configure notifications for expirations if they fall within X amount of days of expiring. You can notify the appropriate parties, push, email, etc. And then down here on the purchase order, you'll just see a nice snapshot of this life cycle of this commodity. This commodity has gone through the whole life cycle, so you'll get a nice snapshot there, as well as at the top here. And you'll always have this. So once you submit the purchase order, you buy the commodities, automatically an in-transit record is generated. And from there, you have two options. We can divert the commodity directly to a partner, and we also have the flexibility then to receive directly to the designated warehouse, which is Durban. So as you can see, this received, we have all the information here, and I'll show you in the warehouse a little bit more about the damaged and reconstituted. So as the received record, we have that there, and then also I'm going to go back now. There were, I believe it was 400 of the 500 were actually received directly in the warehouse. So I'm going to go to the warehouse view to show you the warehouse damages. As you can see here, warehouse damages. And from here, all the warehouses, we build in functionality also to do conversions. HQ analysts are working in metric tons. So that's how they submit it in their forms. When warehouses receive an order, declare damages, or release to a partner, they're working in units. So we added functionality for both parties to be able to go in and work in their measurement for the commodities. For the amounts damaged in the warehouse, you'll see damaged and reconstituted. Essentially, reconstituted is still counted as available after, because it's damaged, but they're reconstituting the commodity to an available status. Damage type, we declare that, infestation, and then an action is decided later on what to do with that commodity. And then all of the damage totals are also calculated as well automatically. So now that we have it in the warehouse, we've declared some warehouse damages, 50 metric tons. Now we need to allocate it. We need to kind of put it aside and set it aside for a partner for release. At this point, we'll go in here and we'll select this commodity allocation. And as I said, we're declaring a recipient partner, the country that it'll be going to, as well as any relevant data for these dates. And then auto calculations based on deadlines and the number of days to complete pickup. So with this, we allocated 200 of the metric tons in the warehouse to be allocated. So once we did that, it sets it aside as waiting for release. And you'll see that populate here. I've already released these, so that's why it is 0. And now I'm just going to release this. So same thing here. The program country, the recipient are pulled over. Pickup date is calculated. And you can also see any other relevant information regarding that, that partner release. And that is the end of that, that workflow. So next up, I want to touch on reports. One of the important reports that are automatically generated in the system is the USDA inventory report. There are quarterly audits that are performed. And the Food for Peace team needs to present for this audit a very specific report. So all this data is real time, directly from the warehouses as these commodities move throughout their life cycle. And what you'll see is in Durban, we're going to select that tab. And at the bottom, you can see the commodity that we just put through that workflow. Aggregations for the quantities are here as well, and this is all the relevant information for that audit. But this can all be customized to the need. All right. And then the last thing, I think one of the more powerful things is the dashboard. We've configured a dashboard for, this is actually going to be showing you OFTA. What they need to see is, this is usually a separate site. Their partners and vendors need to be able to get insight into stockroom availability for commodities. And so we've been able to configure a world map, and these are for the OFTA locations. It gives you a nice map view. We can drill down into these items here. If I click on the PISA location, I can actually drill down and see some of the stockroom availability in PISA. The alternative is also I can go back and I have a nice tabular view here of what is available in PISA. So let me just go down here. And again, same thing, nice snapshot here of everything that is available in that PISA stockroom. So that is it for the demo. I will be handing this over to Ben now.
Excellent. Thanks, Devin. What a powerful demonstration, really showing that power and that single source of truth view into these foods and supplies around the world. You know, that functionality and that real-time access to data, you know, just what a transformation and that the USAID's gone through from spreadsheets to now this real-time access to truly manage inventory for a critical need of food and supplies around the world. You know, just to share a little bit broader, what Nuvolo does is we provide a full connected workplace system for organizations like USAID. And what that means is this platform built on ServiceNow is bringing together departments that are historically siloed so that all people, locations, assets, inventory in this case, and business services can truly work on that same platform and ultimately collaborate and share information and work together to deliver their services to their customers and to their employees. So with Novolo, we have 5 key areas of our solution. The first is maintenance, and maintenance includes inventory management, warehouse management, everything from corrective maintenance and preventative maintenance, all bundles up under our maintenance solution set. We also include space management for organizations wanting to track their AutoCAD floor plans how many people are allocated. As offices reopen, looking at how are we allocating space around buildings and locations. Projects allow organizations and their planning, design, and construction team to manage the life cycle of their projects. Real estate tracks your real estate leases, and especially now as you're looking at your portfolio, do you need to renew leases or not, or look at additional options in the future. And lastly, sustainability and energy tracking. All of that is protected by our cybersecurity solution to be able to protect any IoT connected devices. What this connected workplace platform does, as was shared with this USAID story, is it truly, like I said, allows organizations to collaborate, coordinate their work, track and report. What a powerful report, being able to see inventory around the world and ultimately improve the employee satisfaction experience for organizations. With iTech, our implementation partner, and Novolo, delivering a world-class solution for your organization. Next slide. As Devin shared, Nuvolo is powered on ServiceNow. ServiceNow, by the way, is able to be deployed in major organizations around the world, also handling security requirements like FedRAMP for the federal agencies. This platform truly is scalable to be able to support the largest, most complex organizations, and it is cloud-based or on-prem for some of our federal customers. This platform has other areas, and USAID is also using the ServiceNow platform not just for a warehouse and inventory tracking, but also for IT, HR, and other aspects of their business. With Novolo, with ServiceNow, it truly is an enterprise service management platform, and it does give that functionality, as you guys just saw in that demonstration today, to allow that quick speed, time to value, and enterprise platform for your business. Next slide. Great. At this time, I think we're going to go ahead and open for question and answer. I see a few that have come in, so we'll go ahead and move to that portion now at this time.
Awesome. Thank you guys for that presentation. Looks like we have one of our first questions coming in. It says, can this system tie into other ERP or procurement systems, SAP, Oracle, Lawson, so that purchase automation and tracking?
Sure, Brooke, and this is Ben. I'll take that question. So yeah, absolutely. That's one of the most common integrations that we do with Novolo, is tie into those procurement systems like SAP, Oracle, Lawson, Microsoft Great Plains, and others to truly manage that auto replenishment process, that receiving process, that purchase requisition process. So yeah, it's definitely a common use case. We also see asset tracking and depreciation come over as well as part of that integration, and a few other use cases. But yeah, absolutely. Good question.
Yeah, and actually, I'd like to, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Matt. And just to give this some real-world context, so the procurement system that USDA uses, WebSCM, is SAP-based. And we have started to talk about, it's only at the API level right now, but there are discussions around how to integrate or share some of that data. Go ahead, Matt.
That's exactly where I was going with that. And then we're also we're road mapping to connect with the USAID's other supply chain integration tools to help coordinate and direct more directly with the vendors, the distribution partners.
Great, thank you. Another one right after that said, are organizations using this system to track PPE inventory as a part of the COVID response?
Yeah, this is Ben. I can speak to that. Absolutely. Yes, organizations are looking at PPE inventory as one of those critical inventories as they are considering the reopening of the workplace. Being able to manage inventory items like masks, gloves, goggles, temperature sensors at doors, right? All of those inventory, hand sanitizer, right? Being able to start thinking about those inventory tracking items as well is becoming a big topic, because historically organizations have done that very manually in spreadsheets and other manual forms. Moving to an automated system can now auto-replenish items critical to the business like PPEs as organizations reopen the doors. Yeah, good question.
Yeah, and also does keep PPE as a regular part of their non-food item inventories. PPE right now in the international realm is a little controversial, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But yes, the system definitely does have the ability to track any kind of food or non-food item that we're using inside the system.
Awesome, thank you. We have a bunch coming in. Another one is, what are some of the systems that this can replace? I think it's Archibus, IBM Triago, Plan On, IBM Maximo, for example?
Yeah, those are some of the common ones we see. IBM Maximo is heavy in federal agencies, so that's certainly one that's able to easily be moved into Nuvolo. IBM Tririga and Archibus and a few others like that are certainly products that can be moved off. But what's interesting is most commonly, like we see here at USAID, is it's actually spreadsheets. A lot of organizations are trying to digitally transform their business, and what's surprising is they're not using more costly advanced systems like an IBM product. They're actually using spreadsheets in a lot of cases, and then ultimately the value is that digital transformation, be able to truly automate work and see real-time visibility into the business.
Yeah, and from the Fed's perspective, my own experience is that getting those types of systems approved and contracted for and developed and implemented and working, it's not what we do. I work in an office that provides humanitarian food assistance. I think I'm pretty good about buying food and moving it around the world. I'm not an IT guy, so I think that's where a lot of that reliance on what kind of tools do I have as a federal employee or an organization, an agency, what do I have now is usually my only resort, and it's just a switch in mind. You have to go out and find what you need. Don't be so beholden to that old way of thinking. I got my head in the sand and I'm just going to do what's put in front of me. I think that's where a lot of the reliance on Excel, at least for the parts of the government that I've worked for and some of our implementing partners, that's really the limiting factor. There are IT solutions out there. That's never the problem. It's do we have access to them? Can we work with our CIO offices to get those approved? Can we find contractors that can help us get through that process? Yes, 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 and yes. That's been my experience with at least this one project.
Greg, and that's a really good point. What's really interesting is most federal agencies today are already running the platform that Novolo is built on, called ServiceNow. So for us to snap in our entire connected workplace system doesn't require new infrastructure, doesn't require new systems. You already have that system. So that's hopefully speeding time to value for organizations like yourselves there, Greg. So that's good comment.
Fantastic. Another one came through. How does the commodity get into your system? Do you use RFID, barcode scanners?
Currently, it's just spreadsheet uploads, and that's even a step forward. This was done manually for a long time, and just getting that ability to upload things into the system. We are exploring, use of APIs and all kinds of AIDC technologies to make that process easier, but this was kind of the first big step into, kind of the real world of what can be done, and we're kind of coming to those next milestones in the next phase of this project.
Awesome, thank you. And some people are wondering, what is the ServiceNow partner status of Nuvolo?
Yeah, we are an elite partner of ServiceNow. Actually, we received one of their top awards here in 2020 as the #1 built-on store application on ServiceNow. So yeah, good question.
Awesome, and congratulations you guys on that as well. Another one came through. Can this also track maintenance schedules and windows for equipment and commodities?
Yes, it absolutely can. So Novolo has a full preventative and planned maintenance scheduling capability, including also rounds and maintenance schedules. So you can do your rounds around the building, cleaning rounds, custodial rounds, but you can also do items like physical counts and cycle counts for your warehouses, and you can do your asset and maintenance schedules. So if you're doing calendar-based fixed scheduled maintenance, or if you're doing floating or utilization-based maintenance, all of that's possible as part of our scheduled maintenance solution as well.
Thank you for that. And does this support OpenID Connect or for integrations?
The platform itself is a full open API system and can integrate with pretty much any system on the market. So the answer is yes.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you guys addressed this one as well, but is the application WAC 2.1 compliant?
I'll look into that and follow up with you on that one specifically. So I'll take that one offline.
Perfect. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, it looks like we have a bunch more questions coming in, so I think it makes sense that we will follow up with everyone offline in order to address everything in detail. I see some are pretty extensive, and we want to make sure we give you a full picture of what your organization might need to be successful. And I want to thank all of our participants as well as our speakers for today for being with us. We hope that this webinar has been helpful for you and your organization. If you do have any further questions, feel free to use the contact information on our screen here. We have our CareSoft team, the iTech AG team, as well as Nuvolo for you all. Please feel free to reach out. We'll be taking a log of these Q&A questions, and we will follow up with you afterwards. Thank you so much. Thank you guys again. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of their day.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.